I used to find it very annoying and distasteful and sometimes concerning when a relatively prolific social media personality, if you like, a YouTuber in my case, when a person would just suddenly disappear off the radar without a word. And I thought it was extremely inconsiderate because people do naturally worry. And I can relate to that totally. But 2.5 years ago, I realised with regards to uploading such personal and deep musings about myself and my view of the world, I realised that it was like consuming something that you're mildly allergic to. You still like the flavour, you're drawn to want to eat it, but each time you do you feel extremely nauseous, sluggish, all of the things that can be associated with a mild allergy. And every time I uploaded my innermost thoughts, I was actively I was projecting how I felt in the real world, to be fair, but to offer such deep insights and be more or less universally hit with no real response. It's a very thankless task when an individual is going through something major in their life and they are essentially just looking for people who understand, people who want to say, even just chin up, buddy, just to know that that concern is there. And it's not to say that it was a 100% thing, but it was something that was a great source of sadness and added to my sense of not having much self-worth. It has to be taken into consideration as a person who's been through some horrific personal circumstances in the years prior to that, and you're not always seeing the world straight. But I think unless people do go completely batshit crazy, there's always an element of truth in what people are doing and saying. Sometimes you have to scale down the anger, you have to ignore the passive aggression, and you have to think, well, why would this person who is seemingly relatively with it and intelligent, why would they have these levels of anger and resentment? And it's a pretty unforgiving world, even for us charmed folks in the West, for feeling listened to. I can remember with my subject matters and where I used to go with what I was thinking and feeling, I used to think, right, I'll share a link to my video with one of the big name alternative thinkers, I guess you could call them. Maybe they'll just shout my video out and I will be recognised and I will have adoration, I guess. There's no two ways about it. It's ugly to admit it, but just that sense of acceptance. Maybe acceptance would be a more pleasant word to use than adoration, because I certainly don't like adoration, and I don't think I've ever received it anyway. Sometimes when you're trying to explain these things, you're just scrabbling for words, aren't you? But I've grown to believe that when those people are shouted out, let's say, and they become listened to, it's all an illusion. Unless people find you on merit and relate to you on merit and on spirit, it's all utterly meaningless. I regularly see, much less so these days, I try and keep my online interactions as infrequent as possible, but it is an addiction. But I'll see a YouTuber and they'll say one of their real bugbears, we all have them, those who create content and don't make our millions out of it. I've seen people saying 75% of the people who watch this video aren't subscribed. Feel free to subscribe for a start. That implication that they are allowing you to subscribe and it's somehow beneficial to you, that winds me up terribly. It's such a terrible use of language. And it's yodeling into the void and saying, please like me. I know you've liked me enough to click on this video and find out what I've got to say about this subject. But when I see that they're not even happy with that, they want more. And I think, you petulant little bastard. And I just think, and how is that different to you, sunshine? And you have to cast the same critical eye upon yourself as you do other people in this world. And it's not always easy. We understand the contradictions that are going on in our hearts and souls. We know that there's no malice in it. We know that we're at war with certain aspects of our own logic. But that in those situations, that's time to just be quiet. When the hypocrite rears its head, as I'm looking back on with my journey on YouTube over the years, when the hypocrite rears its head, it's time for you to realise, no, it's time for you to fall silent. Nuance is one thing, hypocrisy is another. And I just couldn't do it to myself anymore. I don't hold anybody responsible for not finding my subject matters interesting enough to communicate with me, but it did hurt. And I'm not past feeling like I'm worth more than what I was receiving. But I also understand that if I viewed that in anyone else, I would see that as an incredibly presumptuous, arrogant and egotistical state of affairs. And as such, I've taken a step back and fallen silent, and I like to listen rather than proclaim absolutes that are in fact massive exercises in hypocrisy and delusion. I think the world would benefit a lot from people realising, just because you have the ability to speak, it doesn't mean you should. And you know, the times in my life in the last 6 years have been so difficult for me, and for very, very tangible and justified reasons. But 30 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to turn to the online world for some illusory parasocial relationship with people I've never met and never will. Out of all of the people who see this video, well, the few, because I think most people have just given up on me, and understandably so, I've met one of you. That's a crazy situation when you think about how you're offering so much of yourself and expecting so much of people in return. You know, it's a reflection on people like me who can talk so openly, that there is a streak of very unintentional, in my case, self-importance. The fact that people will sit through the entirety of what I've got to say should be enough, but no, of course it isn't. I couldn't do this to myself, and in the 2.5 years that have transpired since last speaking like this, I've realised so much about how damaging parasocial relationships are. I thought I was so above and beyond it all. I genuinely probably did try and portray myself as one of those people who comfortably used the internet and I was its boss. But it's, you know, it's been completely in control of my life for 25 years probably, since the advent of broadband in my life 20 years ago at least. And in lieu of having a true life, so many of us have adopted illusory parasocial relationships via a keyboard, a mouse or a phone and a total stranger. And it was doing me so much damage that I decided enough was enough. I still feel very drawn to want to speak as I'm speaking to you right now. So much that I think and feel that just won't get aired if I don't say it extremely publicly like this. But that, I've realised, is a time for reflection rather than ejection. And I give my thoughts and my actions a lot of introspection, a lot of deep thought, you know. And nothing's particularly improved in my life through making these decisions about not being my own self-flagellating whipping boy, you know. But I think that one of the things that I certainly do struggle with is an awareness beyond my own hurt and pain. I feel so justified to want to scream about my own hurt and pain that any logic that's put in my way about how I could be potentially self-inflicting wounds upon myself, I don't want to hear it. And at this point in time, I'm so damaged that I don't want to hear it, and I can't hear it. I need to heal, and I don't need to have any expectation of people. I really shouldn't have any expectation of people in a parasocial sense of them hearing such things and offering an alternate opinion, and me absolutely loathing and detesting it. I'm not ready for that, you know. So that is, to coin a phrase, I guess, that's God's way of telling you to shut the fuck up and maybe just listen and learn in silence. Anyway, I hope these thoughts have been well received. Hope it offers some clarity as to what's been going on in the last, well, it offers no clarity as what's been going on in the last couple of years of my life, but I'm still here, I'm still kicking, and I want to wish you well. Nothing but love as ever.